Yes.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I am going to just check on the executive committee members present. Let me call the roll. Chairman McKay, not here. Supervisor Stork.
Present.
Okay. Supervisor Lusk.
Here.
Okay. Monica Backman. Her name is showing up. Monica, you may need to unmute. All right, we'll circle back to her. John Lynch.
Good afternoon.
Jennifer Mitchell is pretty sure not here. Barbara Byron.
Hello. Here.
Okay, and Tom Bishotny.
I'm here.
Okay. Let's see, Monica Backman, did you, I'm going to send a request on you for her. Okay, well, that's what I have thus far. It looks like Monica.
Yes, Monica is on. She's I saw her unmute and then I think she's muted again now. She's
okay.
here on video.
Okay. Yeah,
I saw her too. Everybody, this is Anna. Just a clarification. Everybody in the executive committee has to make themselves known via speaking. If we cannot hear somebody, they cannot participate. So, Robin, can you try to text with Monica on the chat and see what's going on with her audio and unmuting?
She's watching.
Okay.
I did send a request on you thing to her.
And she might need to call in, and I'm going to send her the call in.
Yeah.
Oh, looks like she might be on.
Oh, she's unmuted now.
She's unmuted.
Monica Backman.
Vanessa, can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm getting a message to unmute myself. That you want me to unmute myself?
Oh no, we just wanted you.
I cannot hear you.
Oh, okay. Robin, do you have that issue?
Let me try logging off and logging back on.
Okay.
That's what she should do, and then I'll send her the phone number as well.
Okay. Thank you, and apologies for that. Do we need to wait, Anna?
You can't do any business until she's back, but at least you guys could hear her, but she can't hear everyone, so it has to go both ways per the law. So we just need to wait until she gets back so she can verify that she can hear the team.
Okay, no problem.
Okay, can you hear me? Or okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, now I can hear you. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Monica. All right, well, I think we're all here now. So welcome everybody. This is the Richmond Highway Bus Rapid Transit. This is, if you can believe it or not, actually our executive committee meeting number 11. Today is April 16th, 2021. And Tom, I guess we'll start with you in case you want to have any opening remarks. No? Okay.
No, in the interest of time, I'll just let you roll with it. But welcome to everybody. Thank you for being here.
All right. Well, let's go over our agenda really quickly. So you can see here, we did our introductions, or at least for the executive committee. The first couple of action items here, NEPA, FTA coordination right away. We're going to do a 12-month outlook in our interactive map. Those are all more project statuses, and really the bulk of today and what we want to discuss has to do with station design and branding, with the goal to get us to a concept approval from the executive committee today. So let's start with our NEPA process. So we've been ongoing for the environmental document. So we start with our Section 106 process, which is one of the big things that has to be completed for us to close out the document. So you can see here, we did get a conditional no adverse effect from the Department of Historic Resources in Virginia, which is great news. We did receive comments from 4 of our consulting parties, including an objection from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, which is at Woodlawn, But we are working that out. It's nothing, you know, I think we're actually in a good space where we're about to resolve the objection and addressing any comments and concerns they may have by providing a technical memo to keep the project move, or at least Section 106 process moving and to get to closure. Finally, FTA comments. So for the categorical exclusion, or what's the NEPA document, we're working on updating our environmental justice analysis and some other edits that they've had along the way. And you can see there in conjunction with working on our Section 106 information. So we do still expect to have a signature on that document in late spring of this year. For FTA coordination, you know, we have monthly meetings with them, and just to make sure everyone remembers, we did get accepted into the project development phase for the New Starts funding program, and that was back in March in 2020. So since then, we have had monthly meetings. One of the things we're intending to do is to request entry into engineering this summer, and you can see here we have a long list of things that have to be completed. So NEPA will have a new starts rating. We're already at our 30% design, project management plan, our cost estimates, and progress on our third-party agreements. So those are all things that'll have to be at least completed or at a good place for us to move into the second phase again, which is called engineering. And during our monthly meetings with FTA, we talk about everything. So schedule, about this readiness to enter engineering, right away, you know, the same type of things that we've brought you or have updated you on, we do the same thing with them. A quick update on our right-of-way acquisition process. So I just wanted to note there are 2 acquisitions that were FTA approved that we are working on. But just again, for everyone's peace of mind, that official right-of-way phase and process does not start until after the NEPA approval. But there are 2 sites on the corridor that we've identified, whether they be already on for sale or a hardship purchase that we've had to do, just working and discussing to property owners. So those 2 are moving on. As part of this project, we have to submit a real estate acquisition management plan to FTA, which basically just lays out that we understand and know the process, and they want to make sure. So through a real estate management plan, that's what will be processed. Another thing we're working on is and I'm sorry for that outside noise, demolition planning and procurement underway. We started that coordination to make sure we stay on top and stick to our schedule. Part of the things that we're also doing is continue to develop our right-of-way design and evaluate minimization alternatives along the corridor. We're at 30% design, but there's always a time and we see a chance to develop that and try to minimize those design efforts. And finally, we continue to communicate with stakeholders, developers, property owners, and the general public. One thing I do want to mention that the county officially, the only letters that have been sent out for the project when it comes to right away are those for survey or environmental effects assessments. So just want to make sure that's clear. So for a 12-month outlook, you can see here one of our major milestones is again to complete NEPA in late spring of 2021. An exciting thing is our project development phase. So as a reminder, we have 2 years to finish this. So we entered in March, I just told you, in March of 2020, and we have technically until March of 2022. But if you recall, we've been working on all the things that are needed for this phase. And so we'll actually be coming to an end. We can get out of this phase in early summer of 2021. And that'll be what lets us request to enter engineering in late summer of 2021. So like you can say, you know, we delayed that entrance to make sure we had enough time to finish, but we didn't need the whole time, and so we'll continue on. Right of way, again, our approved advancement of acquisitions is underway. We'll look at demolition, rough grading plans to follow, and again, this will all be continuing as soon as we close out the NEPA. Third-party agreements and coordination, those are underway. The big key players there are going to be the Virginia Department of Transportation, of course, WMATA, and Fort Belvoir. Those conversations have started and are ongoing. One of the bigger completions that we're looking after is for the VDOT programmatic agreement. We're hoping to get that kind of finalized with signature in the fall of this year. Utility coordination that has started and is ongoing. Completion of our 60% roadway plans and station design. We're expecting that to be completed in early 2022. Value engineering and constructability review. That's something else that's needed as part of our entry into engineering. So you can see here, we're planning to do that effort in the summer of this year. And then finally, we're looking at an electric bus technology review. That process or that project, that task order has started, and we're looking to complete that in early 2022. A big new feature that we've been working on and are excited about is this new website. I'm sorry, it's a new interactive map that's on our BRT website. So it works a lot like a search engine. You can put in an address, and you can see at the top here, search an address on the corridor. It'll zoom and take you to this address, and then you will be able to see pretty much the stills of what we have on our website. So the roll maps only in an interactive way, right? So you'll be able to click layers on and off, zoom, and it'll tell you what the features are. So the purple, for example, if you were to click on the map, it would show you the transit way. The green, it would show you the landscape panel. You know, this little orangey, so that's the sidewalk, and etc. So it's again a feature that we're starting to roll out for the community. Anybody who's really interested in wanting to really dive into the details of what's going on with the project, they'll be able to do that. Another feature it'll have is it will show you the VDOT corridor improvements project area, but it will not have this level of detail. But what it will do is take you directly to their map and their efforts. Since we don't have control of that, you know, the design for that project, we wanted to make sure people had the latest and greatest. As we continue and roll out the design, we'll continuously update the interactive map as needed. And you can see here, we have linked you to the bottom, so you'll be able to click on and directly go onto the map. And again, this feature is live. So if you went to our homepage on our BRT website, you'd see it's called Interactive Map, and it would take you directly. All right. So now we're going to get into, and I'm sorry, maybe I should pause. From those updates that everyone's heard, do we have any questions, or does anybody want to go back to anything?
Vanessa, this is Tom.
Hi, Tom.
Just one other update that I wanted to point out was that VDOT did get approval to start land acquisition for the VDOT project, which is south of Sherwood Hall down to Jeff Todd Way. And so they will be starting the process on the parcels that they need to acquire, the entire parcel. So that'll be the first phase, and that will be starting later this spring. But they do have the final approval to move into right-of-way for that project.
Thank you, Tom, for the reminder. That is right. And in fact, the date officially is April 9th. And again, so that's the first phase. So that goes, they've broken up their project into phases. So that will be from Jeff Todd Way to about the Fry Road location. And that is what they consider their phase one for their project.
Vanessa, this is Monica. I have a quick question. The opposition from the National Trust for Historic Preservation, do you think the comments are in a nature where they can be addressed without schedule slippage and things of that nature?
Yes, we do. Thank you for pointing that out. Absolutely. We've already, in fact, had conversations with them, sat down and gone, you know, comment by comment to make sure we understand what their concerns are more than anything. And I think after we discussed, it was more just a misunderstanding between what they were thinking and what we were thinking, or what the design showed. So we're already pulling together a technical memo that'll, you know, make them feel better about the comments, and it'll get us to continue working with them, because aside from them just being a historic property, they are an impacted property owner. And so that'll give us the ability to, you know, continue that as we finalize design. So thank you for that. Yes. We're almost done, in fact. Anyone else? All right, well, now let's move on to a station.
Vanessa.
Sure.
Yeah, this is Nick from Supervisor Stork's office.
Hi, Nick.
I sent you an email about this a few days ago, but can you clarify now that Rick Foley is in a different role? I know you said he's still going to be involved in the right of way for this project, but could you also say like who else would be involved or helping him out with that?
Sure. So from our office, we have Valerie Peeney, who's actually not here today, but she's from our office. But be rest assured that, you know, we have a land acquisition division, and their director is Dennis, and I hope I don't butcher this, Dennis Kate, who's been involved. So in fact, we have a meeting next week with them to kind of discuss in this in-between time. We also have Clyde Monahan, who's been on some of the meetings with us. So that, you know, they have a lot of real estate specialists in there and who will continue to work that. Right now, I don't have another name for you until, you know, we talk to Dennis and their team.
Okay, thanks.
But if I might, Vanessa.
Sure.
So Rick just moved across the street. He's still working for the county. He still will be engaged in the Richmond Highway project, not to the same level he's been engaged in the past, but he'll continue to be engaged in his new role as well.
Thank you, John. And I guess we do see him as the lead for us, but with support staff, more additional support staff.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so station and design and outreach that we've been doing. I wanted to take a minute before we get into the details and give you a progress and where we are to date. You know, given COVID, we have had to change our strategies when it comes to doing these outreach efforts. If you recall, and just to take a minute here, we started with station design. We had two virtual meetings, November 8th in English, November 9th in Spanish, and then we did 2 virtual branding meetings, the same thing, one in English, one in Spanish. And as we've continued on with our progress, you know, to give everyone ample time to take our surveys and try different ways of reaching out to people. We have extended those, and we'll go through those dates later, but I just wanted to note here the different ways that we went out and we tried to reach different people. So we started with our email listserv that has announcements and reminders, and you can see that went up to, but we have almost 1,000 addresses. So we were able to send out this newsletter you see at the bottom, English and in Spanish. We did outreach via just our Fairfax alerts. Different people signed up for that. We also emailed directly to our community organizations. So, you know, civic associations or homeowner associations specifically. We participated in food distribution events. So not only did we have flyers, but we also were boots on the ground with just being out there, you know, socially distanced, but being able to talk to people and give them flyers as well. We amped up our social media ads on Facebook and other ways about these 2 very important efforts we were doing. We also put a large board at the Highland Government Center. And when I mean large, it's a 3 by 5 foot board that was pretty impossible for anyone going to the center to miss. We also posted bus stop posters along the corridor. And finally, we just worked with our different teams, specifically neighborhood and community services, to actually have physical newsletters and posters at government centers and at community centers. And I guess I'd note that big poster board, one of the things we did is to have the QR code available so that, you know, people didn't have to touch anything, simply scan it, and then they could take you to their surveys in that way. So first, we're going to start with station design. And here are the 2 stations that we are currently contemplating. These are the ones that, you know, were shared with the public in November. During this timeframe, we had the online survey open from, I think it was the end of November to March 7th or so. You can see the 2 concepts here. And I know it's been a while. I know since we went through this, one of the things we wanted to do today is take you through a short little video to and this is what we presented at our meetings to kind of show you and guide you through what these look like. So I'm going to play it now. So you can hear the station is looking right at the station. We're continuing down. We're going to hit one of the intersections. You can see the inside, the canopies, the platforms. Here we're turning into the station and we're walking up. This is, to remind everybody, this is concept 1, and this is the concept that we were looking at that they had some of those aeronautical features that we've talked about. So, giving kind of like a nod to the airport at Hybla Valley. And you can see here now we're at the end of the station, and you can see, if you see in the far background, how it's relative to the station on the other side. Here now we're kind of moving toward behind of the station. Again, this aeronautical feel. I want to point out that there is a windscreen along through here. All right, and again, that was just, it's been a while. I thought a video would kind of remind everybody where we were when it comes to concept 1. Now we're going to look at concept 2 and do the same thing with the video. So here we are kind of moving in front. This is the concept that kind of is a nod to the gateway, to the front traditional porch that we see in a historic sense. Here now we're going and sliding into the station within some of these integrated features that you see, whether it be mapping, the ticket vending machine, bench features. You can see a good look at the windscreen that's found up behind with the next bus arrival time. Here we're going to turn and we're going to look into the station from the farthest side. And again, I want everyone to note in reference the back of the far side of the station. And here we are kind of taking a view from behind the station. Again, note the windscreen. All right. So before we get into the station survey responses, again, the colors, some of those features are not set on, but those were the 2 stations that we were looking at, and the community has been able to actually respond to and kind of grasp. Under this survey for station survey responses, you'll see that what we did is we kind of took a look at, well, where are the responses coming from? And I think you can see here that we got a really good return rate in regards to the different zip codes along the corridor. So obviously the last 309 digit here, which is the Woodlawn and Mount Vernon, 306 with Hybla Valley, so the center, and then 22303 for the Huntington area. And you can see those were the biggest responses that we got. And here we asked the question, well, which concept do you like best overall? And you can see it was pretty close between concept 1 or 2. So concept 1 being the highlighted blue bar and concept 2 being the orange bar. I think the other thing we'd like to note is that both concepts, you can see here, about 11% of people liked both of the concepts, which when you add it up, that's pretty a high rate, which kind of tells us, concept 1 or 2, people in general would be okay with. We only got a 7% return rate, which said that they did not like either concept. So another question that we asked, and we kind of tried to summarize is, a clarity. Would you know this is a bus station if you approached it from the sidewalk? You can see here the gray bars for both concepts. Over 80% of the responses said they could. And then, it dies down 7% for concept 1, and then about 10% for concept 2. So then we asked, well, what about the shape of the form? Which canopy shape did people like best? Overall, concept 1 was at 46% and concept 2 at 37%. And you can see here, about 11% of the respondents liked both concepts. For scale, so overall, the scale, the size, that's the station architecture. How did people feel about that? And again, over 50% responded that both concepts, they liked the scale. And then it was you can see here a pretty divided between station concept 1 and 2, about 19% for the scale. So safety, which concept feels more safe to you as a potential BRT rider? You can see here about 45% of respondents said that both concepts did that, 28% for concept 2, and about 18% for concept 1. And then finally, the question that was asked under this was, which concept feels more comfortable for all users? And you can see here about 39% responded that both, and then we dropped down to 31% for concept 2 and 22% in this case for concept 1. And here are, we're going to go through some of the most frequent comments. And actually, Jenny, do you want to help me and kind of go through which we found when it comes to the concept one most frequent comments that we got?
Sure. So what you're seeing here is we asked not only those more quantitative questions that you just saw from Vanessa, where we could say, you know, it was a multiple choice kind of question. We asked an open-ended question of what general comments or concept questions you have about concept one, concept two, and both of the concepts. And so what we did was we categorized the comments we got and then sort of tallied up how many comments mentioned them. And so what you're looking at here is the the categories from concept one. So more than 50% of people who respond to this question said they liked this look overall, they liked the theme. A lot of people use the word sleek and futuristic. They liked that it was open. The second sort of batch of comments we got was people who said, you know, I like this, but I have some suggestions. And so it was things like color, some things about design or signage, things that we can consider as we're moving forward with design. Only about 13% of people said they did not like this theme. They thought, and for those folks, they said often it was maybe felt like it was dated or they didn't necessarily like the aviation theme. You can see here the last three are quite small security features, concerns about how this fits into the corridor, and then weather protection. Those three did not really come out here, but as you'll see when we get to comments about both of the concepts, the security features and protection from weather are things that are on people's mind. So we can talk more about that when we get there. You want to go to concept two, Vanessa?
Yes, sorry, it's not moving. There we go.
Sure, thanks. So with concept two, you can see that slightly fewer people said they like this theme, 39% as opposed to, I think it was 53 for concept one. Those who liked this design said they liked that it's more traditional, it reflects, you know, the community sort of history and identity. Several folks mentioned that they thought this felt sort of sturdier, it had better protection. They liked the sort of lines it had and some of the design features. Unlike concept one, almost the exact amount of people said they do not like the design theme for sort of the opposite reasons people liked it. So some folks really did not like the colonial sort of historic theme as much. They didn't like that it felt sort of bulkier, etc. The three features at the bottom are sort of, or excuse me, the three other sets of comments at the bottom here are similar to those for concept one. Folks had some small suggestions about the design, and they had comments about weather protection and security features.
And again, through the videos, I think that we found sometimes people maybe weren't really, you know, just saw the pictures and if they weren't looking at the video or didn't click on the video, I don't think you could see the design screen or the windscreen in this picture, for example. So we think that could be relative of why some of these, you know, the security features or like the protection, that was where it was coming from. Okay, let's go to the next slide.
And then these are the comments about all concepts overall. And so weather protection came up at the top, about 30% of folks. And as Vanessa mentioned, some of that's definitely, you know, people mentioned, you know, where's a windscreen in the back? And there was one in the design. It just wasn't necessarily maybe readily visible to everyone, though we did mention it in the text. But people had other ideas too. Some had concerns about the peaking on a roof or, you know, wind coming in from the side and whatnot. So those are some things we've talked about with some of you previously, and I know we're continuing to think about. But overall, the next batch of comments here was overall positive comments, people who liked the direction we're going overall. And then security came out in third here with about 12% of comments. And just to elaborate on those a bit, people were concerned in both concepts, and honestly, I'm sure it would have come out in any concept, concerned about vandalism, protection, you know, safety, getting to stations and whatnot. So again, those are things we can continue thinking about here. Let's see, I don't think I need to go through the rest of those, Vanessa, unless you would like me?
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
No, we can go back if anyone has questions, but I think the general sense here is just to give you an idea of the more important or the higher, right, the comments that we've gotten, so that when we continue design, we'll take a big look or another look at the top 4 or 5 of concerns that we got from respondents. Right. Okay, we're going to go on to station components. So, and we don't have it here, and I apologize. During our meeting, we talked a little bit about, back in November, I think for station design, we talked about, well, the 9 stations or the 18, depending if you look at it, platforms are going to be the same, but each CBC, each central business center is going to be a little different, right? We understand that they're different neighborhoods up and down the corridor. So we asked the question when it comes to the stations, well, where do you want to see this? And we're calling it the neighborhood charm, right? So while the stations are going to be similar overall, the windscreen or art panel, you can see here, we had those different areas identified in the survey, and we asked the respondents, well, where do you want to see these elements? What should we focus on? So you can see here, and again, windscreen design was at 42%. We had an area for a plaza art or a sculpture or a panel that came at 36%, very similar, very closely to an art or interpretive panel at the station at 35%. We also asked about the platform paving design. So while people are waiting, we actually could pave something in the concrete, and that came at 34%. There we could do something at the railing design that was special, 29%, and then plaza paving design came out at the lowest end at 23%. Another idea we asked, or something else we asked, was, okay, as you're going through the corridor and understanding that each of the areas or stations are different, well, where do you want to, what should we highlight, right, along these stations? So, and through, whether it be the research that was done by the Department of Planning and Development for their urban design guidelines, or even through just the comprehensive plan embark process, we found no surprises either. People or respondents identified going from north to south. So we'll start at the Huntington Metro Station, the history of Route 1, the diverse culture, the gateway trend we heard, moving to PennDOT, we heard history and culture, nature, community crossroads. You can see here when we get to Beacon Hill, which again, one of their aeronautical or the aviation, the historic airport, the view, Lockheed Boulevard, again, history and culture. And you can see here we're lining up really close to Huntley Meadows. So of course, Huntley Meadows Park was brought up. Going to High Bluff Valley, heard the same thing, Huntley Meadows, history and culture. And when we went to Gum Springs, you can see there was one big nod here, which was the Gum Springs in general, or the African American history, knowing that Gum Springs, the Gum Springs station is right next door to Gum Springs. We moved on to the South County Center, where right next door to that site was the original Mount Vernon High School, and then just county or Fairfax County government in general. As we moved down to the second to the last station here at Woodlawn, which is in the Woodlawn CBC, we heard history again, and then the nod or some attention to Mount Vernon and Woodlawn. And finally, the last station at Fort Belvoir, no surprise there, we heard military culture and history. So as we continue to refine these are what we'll come back with and kind of start looking at how to incorporate these features. So I guess we'll start with staff recommendation, given everything we've heard, giving input, whether it be from our community advisory group or from just stakeholders in general. Staff recommendation is to continue with concept 1 as the design chosen for BRT. For community charm elements, again, taking into consideration cost and kind of narrowing down along the corridor or at the stations where to expect these neighborhood charm elements. We're recommending that we narrow it down to the windscreen, a plaza or art sculpture or panel, and we can continue having those discussions as to, do we include all or 1 or 2 of those elements. And right now, I guess I'll pause and see if we have any comments from the committee. Again, the goal here is it's for executive committee to give us an approval or to take action and so we can move forward with concept 1, assuming everyone agrees. So open it up to the committee for any comments.
This is Monica. I'm all in favor of concept one. I think a lot of the elements which you described are encapsulated in concept one. I did have a question about the stations and the themes. Is it your intent to have the same theme with each station, or would each station have its own individual theme and some of the elements that you identified?
Correct. So there might be a little crossover, I think. Just seeing, we're at Lockheed and maybe High Blood and Huntley Meadows, for example, is really close. So maybe there's some elements of the park in both of those stations, but absolutely, you're right. That is our goal here. The overall canopy under this diagram, right, for concept one will be the same, but maybe the windscreen specifically at the Gum Springs station talks about Gum Springs, or the Woodlawn station talks about Woodlawn, right? So now we're focusing in on these specific elements through the corridor. So that was the intent of that.
Thank you. And I would applaud the public outreach that you've done on this project. I think it goes above and beyond, particularly given where we are today with the pandemic and just really getting out to the people. I think that was a huge plus.
Thank you. Thank you. We tried our hardest to get people out there and get us noticed in different ways. So thank you.
I mean, the food, I think you noted that you were going out to where food distribution was. That's like, wow. And I hope you received a lot of feedback as part of that effort.
So, that's a good point, Monica. What we did is we were out there, boots on the ground. It was around snow season, so I will tell you we had to cancel one of our events. But we also, what we did is, longer in the process, we actually put flyers inside all of the bags, or however they were distributing food. So we did it in both ways, I guess, just to clear that up, to make sure that we tried various forms to reach people. Any other comments? I guess not to get ahead of myself, but as we'll go to branding, one of the big questions will be, well, okay, how do these two elements start working together, which they must, and let's go through branding first before we kind of bring that into play of how we expect or how we're going to start looking at both the station and branding will play into each other. Okay, well, if we have no questions or comments, why, I guess, Tom or Anna, does someone want to take action and kind of lead the committee?
I'll be happy to make a motion that the executive committee endorse concept one for the station design.
I'll second that. Supervisor Ford.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, well, exciting. Thank you, everybody. Before we go on, so our next steps, now that we have formal approval of concept one, will be to publicize the selected concept. So we'll be going back out and doing some outreach, and then we'll initiate our community charm engagement. So we'll be going out and we're working on a plan as to what that looks like as we go through the different CBCs, giving, civic associations, HOAs, and historical really associations a chance, or society, sorry, a chance to kind of weigh in on what they want to see related to those topics through that design, that through those elements that we just talked about.
Vanessa, it's Barbara. Would
Hi,
it
Barbara.
be, hi, would it be helpful to you to have a motion that we focus the community charm on the 3 areas that you highlighted?
Thank you. Yes. I apologize about that. Yes, I guess we should have made that clear, right? So community charm elements, does everybody, you're going to have a motion that we narrow it down to the windscreen plaza and our art sculpture and the panel, unless someone feels that they just want to do two or they're ready to narrow it down even more, which we can do as well.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Thank you for that, and thank you, Barbara, for the reminder.
So Vanessa, do you want to take a vote then?
Yes, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay. Thank you very much. And we are going to move on and start the discussion on branding. And I am going to turn it over to Mr. Jim Wright with Pulsar.
Good afternoon. Thank you all so much. As you know, we've been working on branding for the BRT for some time now. And the next step from our previous discussion was to conduct an online survey. And I want to emphasize that surveys, like focus groups, are never intended to be a democratic process where the most votes win, but rather to provide feedback and insights, and perhaps most importantly, to provide us with any red flags that could create problems for the brand down the road. The online survey was prepared in very much the same style as we did with you last time. We went through just the names. We described those names with a broader narrative. We provided the logos in black and white. Then we shared the logos in color versions, and finally shared the bus designs. We checked in with them at each step, along the way to get their perspective. And at the end, we asked them, taking everything into account, what would be their preferred brand. It's important to note that the order of the brands were constantly being switched up so that there was no bias on the basis of the order of the presentation. For our presentation today, I'm going to be focusing on the feedback that we received on the name, the narrative description of the brand, the color logos, and the bus designs, as well as the final preference on the brand. Next slide. The online survey was conducted in both Spanish and English versions from January 27th through March the 5th. We only received 4 responses to the Spanish version, and that was as a result of that outreach effort that was described, the food effort that actually Jenny did. So I want to thank her for that. Next slide. As with the station design, you can see here that there was a really good concentration of residents along the corridor. Next slide. And we also asked for those who potentially work in the corridor as well. And we had a good representation of those. Across both of those, we had 17 identify as Hispanic, 14 as Black or African American, and 5 identify as Asian. And there was a really good, about 50-50 split in terms of gender. Next slide. So when we shared just the brand name using the top 2 box scores of really, I'm sorry, I apologize. These are the 5 touch points we talked about that we're going to talk about today. Next slide. Yeah. So when we shared just the brand name, using the top 2 box scores of strongly agree and agree, Rex was the preferred name, with the 1 coming in close behind it. So the Rex had 39% with the top 2 box scores, and the 1 had 33%, with X having 18%. Next slide. We then read those some really expansive narratives that kind of put these brands in perspective about what each brand represented, what they stood for. And then you can see that the 1 was kind of jumped to the top of the heap there. That was preferred, with Rex following closely from 47 to 43%, and then X was still in last place. Next slide. We then shared 9 color logo variations with them, 3 for each of the brands. You can see that the navy and cyan color X, the blue X, was preferred with 51%. And this is a pattern you're going to see that's going to continue throughout the entire survey results. Definitely a preference for the blues. The navy and orange was a distant second. Next slide. With Rex, again, the navy and cyan color Rex logo was just slightly preferred over the navy and bright orange, which was a close second. Next slide. And then, of course, with the one, the navy and cyan color for the one logo was preferred, and the navy and sea foam, which was the bottom one there, was a distant second. Next slide. So to kind of summarize all this, in terms of the color logos, the navy and cyan X logo had the strongest reaction with 51%. The one was very close, only 1%. That's statistically immaterial, really, with Rex kind of falling to a close third. And this is really exactly what we saw in focus groups. As the participants kind of learned more, we added a little bit more information around the brands. Their preferences continued to evolve as well. Next slide. So as we saw with the logos, we then shared the bus designs. And the navy and cyan color X was a clear favorite here with the X. Next slide. Likewise, with the Rex, the navy and cyan color Rex bus was a clear hands above favorite. Next slide. And finally, with the one, the navy and cyan color one bus was definitely the preferred here as well. This one's a little easier to summarize. Next slide. So you can see when I told you there's a pattern to the blues, it's definitely continuing. The navy and cyan Rex bus design had the strongest reaction, and the one was kind of in the third place with X filling in the middle. Next slide. So then we asked them, okay, so taking everything into consideration, all that they had seen, what was their preference in terms of brands? You can see that Rex green was their number one choice, and clearly Rex was their preferred choice. And kind of taking into account everything, the one was a second, and then X was a distant third. Next slide. So I know that's a lot of data. I know there's a lot of preferences and things all thrown to you at the same time, and I apologize for that. But so I wanted to kind of summarize it for you here a little bit. And you can see that with just the name, Rex was clearly the leader at that point. And then we saw this continue to evolve with when we provided a little bit more description to it, they saw the benefit of the one. And then when we added the color logos to it, they really liked that X color logo, and as well as the one, with Rex kind of falling to the bottom. And then when they saw the design, again, with those kind of arrows that the Rex had, I think they really were attracted to that, with the one coming in close to that. And then finally, of course, the cumulative brand preference we just talked about with the Rex, then the one. I also wanted to just remind you again what our focus groups had, and there was definitely a difference of opinion in the focus groups as well, with North, the northern part of the corridor really favoring the X, the southern part of the corridor really favoring the one. They had no other second choice. They wanted the one. The Hispanics really wanted Rex, and then our youth group really liked the one. So there was no. If we wanted some decision out of the focus groups, again, much like the online survey, I think they provide us good input, but didn't make our decision any easier. Next slide. So we were asked for a recommendation, and I will tell you, having reviewed all the quantitative and qualitative and quantitative research, we recommended that the selected brand be the one. And kind of here's our rationale. On the positive side, the one definitely has a connection to the corridor of Route 1, which was universally something that everybody wanted. It gave us a sense of community and unity. It was also, interestingly enough, the preferred brand of the youth focus groups. And, frankly, let's face it, they're the ones who are going to ultimately be using this service for the longest period of time. And finally, the blue combinations was overall the preferred scheme across all the brands. On the downside, Rex, we heard repeatedly, if you, we asked as a part of our focus groups, if you could sit down with the leaders of Fairfax County and say, don't pick this brand. Specifically, Rex was called out more than any other. And frankly, one of their feedback was that if they, all you're going to do is add an H, it really doesn't say much about how you're enhancing the brand and really giving a much improved customer experience or improved service, which might lead to confusion and beyond. And for the X, they felt really strongly about the fact that there was this negative connotation. I don't know how many of you watch Family Feud, but that, kind of a perspective that, you get canceled, or worse yet, X-rated movies. And it really doesn't have a connection to the corridor and can be seen as ambiguous. With that, next slide. Vanessa, I'm not sure if you want to go through the next slide or you want me to. I'm open to questions.
Well, why don't we do that first, Jim? In case anyone has questions, let's open it up and we can go back through any,
sure,
any particular slide. Well, good. Everyone's excited. They have no questions. It's pretty clear. Okay. Well, so the staff recommendation, and like Jim just said, is to go with the one, to stick to the blue tones that we've been seeing, that I think unanimously through whatever effort has always been at the top, and then further refine logo and bus designs. I think you can see here's just to give you kind of for the where we are with the future. Some of the ideas and what we've kind of seen or where we want to stick to. We will definitely come back to the executive team when we've gotten a chance to do that work. But first, I guess, is wanting to make sure that we're on the right path, that everyone agrees. And so, yeah, that's what we're looking for. So I guess we'll open it up again in case anyone has any comments. If not, we are looking for the motion to, again, for the one to be the final brand, to continue on our path of the blue tones and further refine the bus, the logo and the bus design.
Vanessa?
Yes.
Supervisor Lush, really quick. I know we might have talked about this previously, and looking at the top version of the slide image, just having one there. I know we had said at one point possibly having V1 written out. Is that still considering that, or what's the status of that?
Jim, I think that's part of our refinement. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so making sure.
Supervisor Lush, you may remember that we had this conversation with the creatives, and in fact, you're one of the pieces you talked about. It's hard to see in this on this slide, but at the very top, it was just one, and then you had the one number on the other side. So yeah, we are exploring that. Maybe on one side you have the logo, and on another side, on the other end, you put the words "the one." But yeah, absolutely, we're open to trying to explore different ways to make the bus engaging and make people say, I want to go ride that. That looks cool.
Okay. And then the last point I'll make, which I think I made before, is if I had a choice between the option at the top and the option at the bottom, I kind of like the arrow as in the top version as opposed to the kind of swooshing arrow, if that makes sense. I know we'll refine that later, but maybe just publicly making that point as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other feedback or clarification that we can add? All right. Well, if not, Supervisor Luss, do you want to give us a motion?
I'll go ahead and either one of them. I'm happy to make the motion.
I'll second it. That's fine.
Okay.
Me. Thank you.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. And I am sorry, next it was supposed to say steps. is again, aside from further refining the bus logo and design, the big look is not going to be, now that we have approval for station concept 1, is looking at how do these two, again, big features, the everlasting impressions for the system, how are they going to play into each other, and play together. So I think the next time we come back to you guys, you're going to start to see some of those elements and where we're going, and how the, whether it be, you know, the station architects and then the branding experts, how they see those two playing in.
Question on that?
Sure.
We have a lot of, let's say, artistic and other, and folks who are very culturally and historically connected. And I would love to find a way to more formally at least gather them together and get their ideas and thoughts. And I don't know how this fits into the overall schedule, but I would like to find a way to get them, because I think we would, I mean, I have some ideas, but nothing compared to the kind of the richness and the perspectives that they might have. So is there a mechanism for doing that?
So you mean like at the local community charm
Yeah.
things that we're talking about? Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah. So that's our
Were you
plan.
there, Vanessa? I thought that's what you were talking about.
Yes, absolutely. Exactly. It's how do we, yeah, who do we engage? Where do we start? And then what does that engagement look like? So, you know, I see, let me give you an example, like a Gum Springs, because I know they have a historic society, right? So we would engage their historic society. There's also the civic association. And then, you know, like even given a chance for maybe the civic associations, or, you know, surrounding that area who want to be involved, at least a chance to be involved. So that's, I think, what our plan or strategy is for the fall is now going at the CBC level and engaging, you know, those societies, the associations, and et cetera. Absolutely. We've also started with our community advisory group. You know, they're the boots on the ground. You know, you guys appointed them, you and Supervisor Lusk. So just giving them an opportunity to help us and give them a chance to tell me who else needs to be, you know, given where you live, on those groups. So absolutely. That's the plan that we're thinking of. And I think we'll come back to you guys as well and kind of show you, you know, where we're thinking and how we're thinking of doing that.
And Vanessa, what I'll say here too is for me in particular, I'm going to want to include the 2 mobile home parks in Lee. So we have representatives on our land use committee from those respective mobile home parks, and we can maybe engage them to help us with this effort as well.
Okay, absolutely.
Thank you.
Anyone else? And in fact, I think we're at our end of the presentation. So if I think the next slide really is to open discussion. So if there's anything that we want to go through and discuss, if not, on anything really that we've presented today, now's a good time and opportunity. Well, if not, we are very excited. We continue, you know, with the hardships to work on this project, continue making it a better project. I think we'll have to look at calendars. We'll definitely be reaching out back to both district offices to make sure, you know, you have a chance to look at our game plan, also maybe our fall outreach plan. Again, our major milestone to hit is to close NEPA and open up our right of way position, continue with our station and branding, and then for at least for the higher programmatic level is to close out project development and to get into officially engineering with the Federal Transit Administration. All right.
And just so I'm clear, Vanessa, sorry, I just was having one last thought, and that is, I know we're going to have some refinements to the design and of the bus logos. When will we be able to see those and maybe comment on them?
Absolutely. Not to put you on the spot, Jim, but I'm thinking June. So the branding team is already on hard working at that. But I think unless someone disagrees with me, one of the things we want to do, not just to show you in isolation, but to show you how they're playing into station architecture. So that's why I'm thinking June, maybe the July timeframe. to come back to you guys. I definitely want to do it before August, since I know it's kind of like a recess break for everybody. But I think unless the station architects twist or pinch me, I think we can get that done for you.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, I'll be flexible. June and July is fine. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
And is there a process? We've obviously made two important next step decisions today. Is there a process for communicating that to the larger public? And can you give us some background on that?
Yeah, I think, we'll kind of do the same thing. We'll have it on our website. That's, I think, the easiest way, right? But also, I think we can get you guys newsletters or, where we are with the project. I think now that we have official approval, we can add this to our newsletter. We can also add our interactive map. We were about to start that email blast of getting the word out there. So I think actually, if you give us maybe a week or two, we can combine all these efforts instead of sending mini emails to everyone and get the district offices a really nice newsletter, as we've been doing, to kind of summarize all the actions that we've taken. Absolutely.
Vanessa, I think we can also do a news release. So we'll also
Yeah.
get a news release that will go out at the same time.
Okay.
And we'll talk to both the supervisors and get a quote from each of you.
That's great.
Great
Could I ask this question, Vanessa, in terms of social media? If there's like a template that you guys could send us, we could do that as well. So in addition to the newsletter, we could do like a social media post that talks about it, and that might give some more visibility with the link to the news release and a link to maybe the newsletter article as well.
Okay. Yep. Our marketing team is on the line, so I'm sure they took note of that.
Yes, we did.
And Vanessa, we'd love to share it with our social media contacts and the other PIOs in the region to pick it up as well.
Oh, great. Yeah, we will absolutely include your team.
Monica, this is Anna. We will definitely tag you guys once we do all of this, so that, and make sure that your team has everything.
Okay, thank you, Anna.
And I'm trying to recall if in our previous presentations, if there was some kind of video on the images, particularly the buses. I mean, the buses, or even this. I know there's the 360 for the stations. So yeah. I would like to have that be part of it, or have some piece of it, at least that we can take a clip from it, and you all know kind of what we're looking for. Not something long, but something that we can utilize to highlight what's. And, obviously, we're still working on the excitement part of this, and that's a long-term build, not a short-term build.
Yep, and I totally understand what you're saying. Right, that's not a problem. I think that would probably be at the end of the summer, once this team or this committee agrees on the actual logo and the design moving forward. I think that'd be our next step, is to now incorporate and show the final logo, brand, and how it plays into the station, which I'm guessing that'll be more of a early fall, maybe like September, October timeframe, just, to make sure you guys are okay with whatever the final design is. But absolutely, Supervisor Shark, I think that's something we can do.
Okay.
Vanessa, a question about the Richmond Highway Resource Guide.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you all stand with that?
Thank you. And I'm sorry, I probably should have included it just for the committee's benefit. The resource guide is something we've been working on as we might have, or we will have some, whether it be relocations or new people or businesses coming to the corridor. We thought it was a one-stop shop to kind of get the information out there. So where the schools are, access numbers, whether it be utilities, there's a lot of information there. It's about an 8 to 10 page resource guide. I think we're almost to the end of that. Nick, we got your comments. I think we were doing a final check on lead district side. And so the goal is to roll that out. As you saw, VDOT just got their approval for right of way. So if we want to make sure we can get that into the hands of those agents as they're going out to talk to property owners. So it becomes more crucial. I think, once they start, doesn't mean that they're going to be out there the next day. So I think we probably still have about a couple of weeks more to to kind of finalize that document and get it out and printed, but we don't want to take any more delay on that. So we will be reaching out to the offices to make sure we have the final comments, finalizing that, and then we'll get it out to your offices as well as the VDOT.
And Nick, your edits were incorporated into the update. So I just wanted to make sure you knew that.
Oh, great. Okay. Excellent. And I'm sorry, you said the VDOT land acquisition right away stuff that begins when?
Official, they got their notice to proceed April 9th. That was like last
Okay.
week. But that's what I mean, like it takes time to ramp up. So, you know, while they already got it, it doesn't mean we're late on anything.
Understood. Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of when they're expected to be ramped up, like the next couple of weeks, or?
It's going to be a little while. This is Tom. They're going to be starting with appraisals first on properties, and that they'll have to go through that process. So it will probably be a couple of months before they start engaging specifically with individual property owners, but we can get you more detail on that.
Okay. Thanks, Tom.
On that point, and more broadly, I want to just echo, I know what you've heard from the supervisors from the beginning. I mean, Jeff before, Rodney and myself. The property acquisition part of this, and then what happens with that. I was, the other day on a call, I was a little concerned because the conversation was about acquiring the property, I mean, pretty much as soon as possible, but let's say it takes a year to do that. And that seems to still be a good 4 or 5 years before there's likely to be construction on the property. So can somebody give me a better idea of how you see that, or what's happening with that part of it?
So Supervisor Stork, both you and Supervisor Lusk and also Chairman McKay have been quite clear that we need to move quickly once a property is acquired to remove the structures so that they don't become eyesores and nuisances, attractive nuisances for the community. So that is the goal, both VDOT's goal and the county's goal is as we acquire property that has structures to work to remove those quickly so that they are not creating any problems in the community.
Well, the other part of it for me was always the ability of, as long as the space is occupied and being utilized, that's fine too. So it wasn't just
Yes.
removal. Okay, in the
Right.
conversation, I was not clear if the owner and in turn what might get communicated to a lessor, if that would be clear. So I hear you affirming that, and that's mostly what I wanted to be sure, because that's still probably one of the most concerning things I have about what we're doing is that, you know, that image and that sense of the highway deteriorating before we see the rebirth, and I want to try to avoid that look. So, yeah.
As do we. And if there are viable businesses, we'll look for options for them to stay in their location until their relocation has occurred. But part of that process with businesses is to help them find relocation as well.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely. Any more questions? If not, thank you everybody very much. I think we made great headway today, and we will be back with more exciting and updating news as we continue now with a clear direction.
Thanks, Vanessa.
Thank you. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Vanessa.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, everyone.